My virtual law firm has been using Google Voice for the last 6 months. I figured that's enough time for me to be able to get a sense of what the Google Voice benefits are, but also the limitations in the context of having a virtual law firm. So I'm here to share all of that with you in this video so you can make the decision on whether or not Google Voice is going to be the right fit for you and your law firm's needs. But first, I do want to provide some context in order to make sure that you're on the same page with me. I don't want there to be any confusion based on other videos that I've released in the past. So for those that know that whenever I first went solo, I was balling on that shoestring budget. In doing so, I decided for my phone and fax service to go through the base plan with Unitel Voice. I have a video describing my experience and the pros and cons of Unitel Voice, and my ultimate conclusion, at least thus far, things can always change, that Unitel Voice is the best budget-friendly phone and fax service combination for the lawyer and law firm that is on a very tight budget. My, let's call it a tech stack, has changed at this point. I want to say at the beginning of 2023, I decided, okay, let's splurge a little bit, get some extra juice with my phone services, and let's decide to go with Google Voice. Now, the drawback with that transition, as we'll talk about in this video later on, is that Google Voice doesn't have a fax service. So I also use Humble Fax. I bring this up now because I have the numbers written down. Whenever I was using Unitel Voice for both services, phone and fax, my average bill was around $16. Now, using Google Voice, it is going to advertise at $20 for the package that I have. And then there's a flat fee for Humble Fax as well at $10. But whenever I look at the actual invoice for Google Voice, if I also include the taxes and surcharges like I did with Unitel Voice, it ends up being to where it's more, I'd say it's closer to almost $27. Let's just round it down to $26 for Google Voice. So the price comparison here is that whenever I was a customer of Unitel Voice, I was paying about $16 a month for phone and fax services. Again, the pros and cons of choosing this particular service was in the video that was sliding above. Compare that $16 to now spending around $36 per month for the stack of Google Voice and Humble Fax. So I know whenever we're looking at that difference, it's $20 a month. Some lawyers watching this may think that is a nominal amount. $20 a month, spend it and get the best that you can get with that $20. Fortunately, I don't want to come off as a jerk here. I'm in the position, my law firm's in the position where that $20 isn't really going to make that much of a difference when it comes to my day-to-day operations. In reality, I'm willing to spend an extra $20 or so in order to get a little bit more streamlined and some extra benefits that we'll talk about in this video. But I also don't want to overlook the fact that some people may be going solo right now, and they may be looking at their options, and they may see that $20 a month as a good chunk of change because they're potentially trying to make the most of a limited amount that they potentially have saved or the limited amount of income they currently have. And you can always scale later to maybe getting a stack like what I'm talking about here with Google Voice and Humble Fax. So I understand both perspectives. If you're watching this and you think $20 isn't much and that's just a drop in the bucket, I get it whenever you're at a certain point in a certain phase in your law firm's journey. But I also remember the early days where I didn't want to spend an extra $20 on a phone and fax service because I'd rather put that money maybe on a different service in order to help make my life easier in a more roundabout way. All that to say, figure out what's going to be best for you, figure out what's going to be best for your law firm. But moving forward in this video, we're going to talk and break down how Google Voice does have those benefits, but also some limitations for my specific needs and experiences. The first thing I want to talk about is the web app and why this was such a big driving force that ultimately is what pushed me over the edge from leaving Unitel Voice to ultimately transitioning to Google Voice. But before I explain why it was a driving force, let's maybe get the terminology straight. By web app, what I mean is that you can access all the tools and everything involved with Google Voice from the convenience of your internet browser while you're on your computer. There's also a phone app. That should be pretty obvious. Every virtual phone service is going to have a phone app, or they should. They don't have a phone app, then just move on to the next virtual phone service. But the fact that Google Voice has the web app to where I can access the phone and all the additional perks from the internet browser is so important. And let's just keep in mind, as a quick side note, just for those that are trying to really get the tech side down, I use specifically Google Chrome whenever I'm using Google Voice, Google Workspace, or anything related to my law firm. I, for whatever reason, keep all work law firm stuff on Google Chrome, all personal stuff on Safari. And I wish I could show you what the web app looks by screen sharing, but unfortunately, whenever I was looking at what the web app on my end looks like, there is a lot of confidential and privileged information, a lot of client information that is shown. So I would have to redact all of that. And I think the end result would basically be you looking at like a redacted CIA file. It's not going to do you any good. But if you go on the Google Voice website or the sales page that Google has, then it'll show you screenshots of what it actually does look like without all the redactions that I would need to make in this situation. So check it out if you want to get oriented, but it's really, really simple. They try and follow the KISS principle of keep it simple, stupid. So now let's talk about this driving force, why the web app was a big deal. What I realized over the years with just using Unitel's app on my phone was that through my personal life and my work life, all communications were coming from my phone. And as a lawyer who is dealing with adjusters, dealing with clients, dealing with defense counsel, there are a lot of phone calls during the actual day job. And whenever I'm done with the day job, if I'm having to then start making personal calls or personal texts, I'm still on the same phone. So what I realized over time was I was developing some not so nice feelings with my phone, to where basically at the end of the day, I would throw it away and not ever want to pick up my phone again. My wife's like, I've been trying to get a hold of you for like 2 hours. Where have you been? I'm like, oh, sorry. I'm just done with my phone and being connected to my phone. And so I started just having this negative association with my phone. So now I use the web app, and this was the driving force, because I can turn off Google Voice, keep the app on my phone, but there's a function within the app to turn off Google Voice on my phone during work hours and just use the internet browser, aka the web app, for Google Voice while I'm on my computer. Because if I'm on my computer, I'm on the clock. And whether the call's coming from a phone or from the actual computer, it doesn't matter. I'm connected to Wi-Fi, calls can come in, and the actual workflow isn't changed at all whatsoever. But mentally, the association of computer, work, I gotta work, is one thing, but it also disassociates my cell phone from work, to where I don't have this like PTSD anxious response every time a call comes in on my cell phone. And then it's like, oh no, it's just my wife. I don't need to be anxious because my wife's calling. This is good. This is a good thing. So that was just a mental thing that I was having to get over, and why ultimately I started doing some research on phone services that provided a soft phone, a software solution. But in this situation with Google Voice, you don't need to add additional software to your computer, because again, it's all within the internet browser. So if you find yourself in that situation where you're getting burnt out on your phone, definitely consider having a solution, whether it's Google Voice or something else, to where it is all on the computer and you can have that disassociation. Sorry for spending so much time on that. I'm sure I over-explained what was going on there, and that may not be an important thing for you, but I can't stress how much I was just dreading picking up my phone. But all that to say, let's move on to the next topic. The second thing I want to talk about is probably, I want to say, the biggest benefit with transitioning from Unitel to Google Voice, which is unlimited texting. When I saw that there was just a simple texting feature with Google Voice, I didn't think much of it. I honestly was like, okay, that's a benefit, but my clients already email me. That's basically the same thing. Or electronically sending a message, that's just the same as texting. So it's not going to be that big of a difference. I was totally wrong. Clients love texting me. And I don't think I appreciated why they love it so much until I maybe asked a few clients, like, why are you texting me versus emailing me? There's no issue with that. And I got some feedback. Here's ultimately what I've concluded after 6 months of using this feature. One, clients really appreciate when I give them my direct line so they can text me. There's a level of like intimacy and care with that instead of like, shoot me an email in my inbox. That's totally different. Being able to have those quick second messages that go back and forth that can pop up during the day from a client's perspective is much more important because they don't check their email as much. They may check their email once a day. From a lawyer's perspective, that's bananas. It's like I'm checking my emails all the time. I'm probably checking my emails too many times. But the fact that you're arriving in somebody's text messages inbox is just like, there's just a level of personalizing the experience for the client that I think is unmatched. Now, the second benefit is that it's just easier for the client to send a text message. That's just way more natural for most people. And it actually helps cases a lot because I tell clients like, hey, use my inbox or use the text messaging as a diary. If you're going through a particular struggle, if you're going through a pain, or if you're going through an inconvenience of some sort, just send it to me. And I may not respond immediately, or I may just say received, but that way we have a log of what you're experiencing over time, because if you end up treating for 3 months, 6 months, or we're litigating the case for a year or more, then we can incorporate these notes to help give you a little bit of a refresher so you can kind of step back into the shoes of what you were feeling during those days. And clients love that. They're going about their day, something happens, and it's just like, let me send a quick little text, and they send it, and I receive it, and it's just super smooth. And they also prefer, I think actually everyone prefers this, sending me videos and photos via text. For some reason, we haven't mastered sending images via email in an easy way. Even with Gmail, I feel like it could be easier, but text message is going to be king in that department. One caveat here, though, this is something that I almost forgot to incorporate in like my little mental notes to say, but I'm glad I remember it now. Early on, when I just started using Google Voice and its text messaging function, I would send my intake paperwork via email to potential new clients. In that email, I would specifically say, hey, if you have any photos or videos that you can text them to my direct line, and here's that direct line. Some people who were texting me, they'd send me the photos of, let's say, the property damage, and the photos came through perfectly fine. No issues. Other people, and I don't know what it was, but the photo quality that would come through on my end was like extremely compressed. It was a very small photo, and it was grainy, and it wasn't great. And I didn't know if it was them or if it was me or if it was Google Voice. So then in those specific situations, I think I had one set of clients drop the photos in a shared Google Drive folder. Then I saw the full quality photo and I was like, okay, something happened during that transmission. And then I had another set of clients email me their photos, and it was the full quality, and it was much better than what was texted to me. Now, the reason why I almost forgot to include this little caveat detail in this video is that this issue hasn't come up for a very long time. I honestly forgot that this was an issue. So I don't know if this issue has been rectified. I don't know if Google Voice, when it comes to text messages, ends up compressing some photos if it comes from a carrier or maybe a specific phone. I don't know, but something to keep in mind to where if you do sign up for Google Voice, become a customer, start using the text message function, don't get mad at me if that ends up happening. Know that there are workarounds like sending a shared Google Drive folder, or just having them email it in that situation. But hopefully it doesn't pop up. I'm hoping Google fixed it because, again, I haven't seen that in a very long time, but something to keep in mind. Now, one final thing to talk about with text messages, and this is just more of a sidebar than anything else, but I'm going to say it anyways. Because I use the web app and I don't really text clients from the Google Voice app on my phone, it means I'm typing on my keyboard. I'm typing like I'm basically sending an email. What I've learned very quickly is that when I send an email, I always end my emails with a period or some form of punctuation. But, the period's going to be relevant to what I'm trying to say here. But when you send a text message, if you end a text message with a period, you're being a little bit of a jerk. Why are you being so stern? Why are you bringing that spice into the conversation? I'm just trying to have a casual conversation, and you end with a period. Yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, you're within the correct age group of knowing what I'm talking about. If you have no idea, you may be, 70 years or older, because I feel like every client I've had that's 70 or older always ends with that period. And I just know you're not angry with me. You're not upset. You're just having correct punctuation in that situation. But all that to say, if you find yourself texting from a keyboard, I have to consciously basically put a period at the end of the sentence and then go back and delete it. So I've been trying to basically, as like a I don't know, as like a natural response, just end with an emoji, just so I can like press a button so that it feels like a period. This is more of a side note than anything, but something to keep in mind, because the last thing you want is to have clients be like, bro, why are you sending me text messages with some sass behind it? Because they don't know that you're text messaging from your computer. They probably think you're text messaging from your phone. And if you're in your 30s, like I am, and ending with a period, that says something. Okay, moving on. The third thing to talk about is that with Google Voice and with the package that I have, the $20 package with Google Voice, it gives me the ability to record calls. This was very important to me as a personal injury plaintiff's lawyer. There have been a lot of convenient times, I'll say, where the at-fault insurance company says, hey, can we have a recorded call with your client? It's like, sure, you're going to have the recorded call, but I'm going to be on that call, and I want a copy of the recording whenever it's all done. And just coincidentally, that recording just happens to just vanish and it's gone, and they don't send me the copy. And it's like, okay, y'all are a multi-billion-dollar insurance company, and you're still having technical difficulties when it comes to recording calls. So now, with Google Voice, I have the ability on my end to also record that call. Obviously, use your judgment on whether or not you want there to be a recording in specific situations, and obviously, you want to follow the appropriate laws when it comes to recording, but there are times where you are going to want to record. The fourth thing to talk about is a major gripe of mine when it comes to Google Voice. It's not a deal breaker, but it's a head scratcher. Google Voice does not do conference calls, it does not do three-way calling, and it doesn't do merge calling, which I kind of associate those all being basically the same thing. So I'll just call it like merge calling. This baffles me. In today's day and age, this is like a very standard feature that, according to a Google search, Google Voice used to be able to do this, but no longer does it. And I don't know if that's in order to have people utilize Google Meet and create conference rooms that people call in on in order to achieve what is effectively a conference call. But the lack of call merging is just super annoying. And here's an example. I'll maybe give you 2 examples. We talked earlier about recorded calls. So in that situation, if I call the client up and I'm like, hey, it's about time to do that recorded call. Are you good? Client's like, yeah, I'm good. It's like, cool. Let me call the adjuster. Hang on. And then I can call the adjuster. Adjuster, you good? Yeah, I'm ready to go. All right, I have my client on the other line. Let me merge calls. And then we knock out the recorded call. I used to do that with Unitel all the time. Now I can't do that. That is a little annoying. So the workaround in that situation is I'll have the adjuster call me and or the client. Typically it's me first and then call the client. And then the adjuster is the one who basically is merging the calls. That's not too big of a deal. It's just an inconvenience. Second example, which is probably the more frustrating example, is that I'll have a potential new clients, I should say, plural, where it's a husband and wife, and they both want to talk to me about potentially signing up, but they're both at 2 separate locations. Maybe they're working, during the course of the day, but they both want to talk to me, and it's just easier for me to answer questions at the same time so that they can both hear it, and it's not playing this game of, telephone to where I give an answer and then the husband tries to relay that answer to the question that the wife's asking at dinner. So what would usually happen, at least when I had Unitel, is the husband would call and be like, you know what? I wish my wife was on the line. Any chance we can have her? I'd be like, okay, yeah, what's her number? Because I'm going to need her number anyways. And then I would call the wife, merge almost simultaneously. And the husband would be like, hey wife, I got Jarrett Stone on the line and, yada, yada, yada. Now I have to have the husband make the call and have the husband merge the phone call, which if the husband is used to doing that, isn't a big deal. But if you have more of an old school husband who hasn't really ever done this before, then it gets a little tricky because you're going to have to try and walk him through it. But whenever he calls his wife, you're not going to be able to talk to him because he's still 1 button away and you're muted. So again, it's more of an inconvenience thing that doesn't pop up too often. Typically, I would say 80% of the time, the husband and the wife are basically on one phone. So it's not that big of a deal. This isn't a deal breaker, but it's a head scratcher. It's 2023 at the recording of this video, and this is something that should be standard with all phone services. So let's get on it, Google. Okay, so we are moving on to number 5, the call tree. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really feel strongly one way or the other about my experience with this particular category. I don't feel like it was necessarily a negative or necessarily a positive. Just it is what it is. And so what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through what my experience has been, and I'll let you determine in your situation whether it's a negative, positive, or just a neutral situation of it being it is what it is. So let's start with comparison here. With Unitel, when I had that service, the call tree basically started at the top where I only had one phone number. Once somebody called that phone number, they got the same message. That same message said, look, if you're a client or a previous client, press 1. I think that's how it went. And if you're a potential client, press 2. And if you're any other caller, press 3. And you can see how it branches out, which is why it's a call tree. And then once they ended up pressing their respective buttons, each option, I was able to record a individualized voice message for that particular caller. For example, somebody calls, they press 2, they're a potential new client. So the voice message that I had that they could ultimately listen to before leaving a message said, hey, I appreciate you reaching out to see if my law firm is right for you. And in the meantime, of me calling you back, maybe go to stonefirm.law and fill out the intake form there. And that way I can have some additional information before I do give you a call, something like that. And that type of individualized response based on what they pressed, I thought was really cool and kind of added to the experience of people calling in. Google Voice was different, or it is different. And this wasn't something that popped up whenever I was researching Google Voice before becoming a customer. And so basically how the call tree works is I had the same phone number that people would call whenever I had Unitel. I got that ported over, no issues there. That was easy enough. And then once they call and they have the same option of 1, 2, or 3, Google Voice requires that the number that the caller goes to is a unique number. It's a direct line. So I had to get an additional phone number for those calls to go to me from that point, which was something I wasn't expecting. But make sure you're paying attention. If you heard that and you're freaking out about, oh, I need a new number, it was free to do so. It's super easy to do so with Google Voice. You basically start typing in the info of what area code you're in or what area code you would like, and then it will populate available phone numbers. And then at that point, as you play the game of like what number looks the best, what number could be turned into like words, and then ultimately I settled on my direct line. So this was it was unique for me at the time because it's like I'm a solo lawyer. There's nobody else that's going to be called, but now I have 2 phone numbers. I had this general line and I now have a direct line. This seems a little excessive, but okay. And the downside there is because Google Voice sends all of the calls to the direct line, I can only have one voicemail for that direct line. So I don't have that unique tailored experience. Maybe Google changes that at some point. I don't know. But frankly, it hasn't been that big of a deal because the workaround, it has ended up being, I would say, a pretty positive overall experience because I tell clients like, hey, I appreciate you calling the general line, but moving forward, here's my direct line so you can text me. And if you ever need to call me, just call this number instead. And again, people appreciate that. And nobody ever said this when I was using Unitel, but I think clients were getting a little annoyed with having to go through the prompt every time they were calling me just to reach me. And they now enjoy going directly to me. And again, the texting feature has been a huge plus as well. And so, it's while the unique voicemail system that Unitel has is pretty cool, I think when you really kind of weed out the extra and you just have a direct line, overall that experience has been pretty favorable from the client's perspective. I hope that made sense. It was a little abstract. I'm over here like pointing and whatnot in just space. And so if it didn't make sense, let me know in the comment section. I'm more than happy to clear that up. Number 6, voicemail transcription. And I'll be honest with you, this was a sneaky win for Google Voice. When I had Unitel, I never thought that this would be an issue until it just became an issue, or at least became an inconvenience. I feel like an issue is a little bit too strong of a term. So I would be sitting in probably a courtroom or somewhere where I couldn't play audio. And what Unitel would do is if there was ever a missed call where somebody left a voicemail, it would automatically send me that message as an MP3 via email. Love that feature. Automatic, makes my life easier, meant that I didn't have to go into the actual app in order to listen to it. But there are times where it's like, I'm not really doing anything. Maybe I'm waiting an hour or two for my hearing to ultimately be presented to the judge. And so I'm just kind of like at the courthouse trying to lay low, kill some time, be productive. And then I get this voice memo or this voicemail MP3 and I can't play it, but I want to know what it is. And the only way to know what it is if there's a transcription. Google Voice fixes that to where it will automatically send you the MP3, but it will also send you the transcription of what is being said in that file. That said, the transcription does decent. I would say it is a C+ to a B- because it gets a little wonky whenever people start using PI terms, right? Like people start talking about claim numbers and then they go through, man, Geico has like so many numbers when it comes to any type of claim number. So Google thinks maybe it's a phone number or maybe it's a date. And then when it comes to names, it can sometimes get butchered. So it can get a little off. But I think in general, whenever you get that transcription from Google, you know what is most likely going on, especially after you've seen a series of transcriptions. You can kind of get a sense of the limitations of what's being transcribed and make your own translation to that transcription as you're reading what's been emailed to you. Okay, number 7, this is the last one, and it blows my mind that I'm about to say what I'm going to say. Google Voice does not have the ability to send and receive faxes. This blows my mind. Google has the ability to send and receive emails. Google has the ability to use phone numbers, and Google is all about encryption with Google Workspace and Google Drive, and it can't combine the basics of all of that to just send and receive a fax. I don't understand it. If there's one company on this planet that can do that overnight, I feel like it would be Google. Maybe I'm wrong. So what you need to keep in mind if you are interested in transitioning your phone service or becoming a customer of Google Voice is that you're going to have to supplement the faxing service as well. As you know from the beginning of this video, I use Humble Fax. I'm not going to do a full breakdown in this video of Humble Fax because this video will be way too long. Instead, what I'm going to do is direct you to this bad boy that's sliding above. That's my full review and breakdown of why I use Humble Fax, why I recommend it for everyone, and the benefits of this faxing service. Definitely check that out and ultimately decide whether this particular stack that I use, Google Voice and Humble Fax, is going to be the right option for you and your budget. Okay, that's all I have. Let me know if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, or if you just want to say hi. And if you do want to do any of that, make sure you do that in the comment section down below. Make sure you hit the like button if you're still watching this, because if you are still watching this, I salute you. I appreciate you. And hitting the like button allows videos like this to rank higher so we can reach more people, ultimately help more people. That's always the goal. And with all of this outro aside, I'll see you in the next video.